Hey, once again, I'm still at Blackbird. I was going to show you guys the amps that I use on cartage dates. Cartage date is when they pay someone else to set up your A rig, like your main thing. You want all the flavors, you want your best flavors. You call the cartage guy to come bring in your rig. And my guy Larry, who is awesome and has been doing it for decades, he sets this up for me. So I've got this rack here. And in the top, I have a Morgan JO12. This is an amp that, about 11 years ago or so, 12 years ago maybe, I had Joe Morgan build this amp. I wanted to run a Tweed and I wanted to run a Tweed Deluxe and a Princeton Reverb together. And I was going to run stereo with effects, like out of a Line 6 M9, when I was on tour. Well, the problem with that is that the Tweed, the front end compresses so much sooner than a Princeton Reverb. And so the effects would sound kind of lopsided if I were to pan them. So I told Joe my problem. I said, I need a 5E3 kind of circuit that has a front end that responds like a Princeton Reverb, like my 66 Princeton Reverb, just a little bit more headroom, doesn't compress quite as early. And this is what he made. And it's basically a Tweed Deluxe. And everything, to me, everything Joe builds, I mean, they're all cool amps. They all have this sort of voxy top end. There's this, nice jangly thing happening. Whether he's building a Marshall or a Fender or a Vox, his signature EQ is in all of them. And it's great. I think it's great. I'm not knocking the circuits. So that's what it sounds like. It's got that sort of top end, and it's got the same sort of headroom that, a mid-60s Princeton Reverb or Deluxe Reverb would have. So when I'm running stereo out of my pedal board, I'm not hitting the front end of either amp harder and lopsiding my stereo reverb or delay or whatever. Right below it is my bread and butter, this guy. This is a 64 Basement. This is the earlier blonde circuit. Even though it has the black faceplate, it's the 6G6B circuit. So if you know anything about the Basement from the early 60s, the brown Basements, or a lot of people call them blonde Basements, they have brown faceplates and blonde Tolex, typically. In 61 to like early 62, the circuit was a 6G6A, and that was tube rectified. A little more sag, a little more, it'll give a little more when you dig in. This one, the 6G6B, is solid state rectified. So it stays cleaner. And to me, it's like the perfect amp to sit right between the Tweed and the later Basements. And I don't know, it just sounds great. It's kind of fat, it's got great mids, it's also got a chime in the top end that's a little thicker, like a Marshall. And this version of it, everybody calls the Tuxedo Basement, because it's got the black Tolex, the black faceplate, but still has the white knobs, So this was very, very rare. Like this is a 1964, I think it was mid-64. Before they went to the AA864 circuit, they had transitioned to the black color scheme, but they still had the same presence knob circuit. Some people call them presence knob Basements too. Right next to that is my tone preserver. Those things are awesome. They really are. I don't notice a tone difference with it, but what I do is I keep it at -6 volts, because the power in Nashville, it's always pushing 125 plus at the outlet. And these older amps want to see lower wattages. Like the biggest difference that I notice is tube life. If you're playing something like an early 60s Marshall or, a early 60s AC30, that really wants to see 110, and they will sound different. But I don't really notice a difference with the amps that I run tone-wise. It's just tube life. I want my tubes to last as long as possible. So let's keep going. I'm going to flip you around for this. Oh no, I can't flip you around in the middle of the video. So below that, I've got this John Sewer Jim Kelly amp. And when I heard that they were reissuing this amp, I thought, oh man, I have to have one of those. They're so cool. I wish I had gotten the matching 112 cab with the EV speaker, but I didn't. I ordered this from my buddy Travis, who was working for Sewer Guitars at the time, Travis Tingley. And he has since been with Rev and now Novo, and great dude. And he was just really easy to work with. I love this amp. It's like a I don't know, a deluxe reverb on steroids. It's got 4 6v6 tubes. You can pull out the gain knob for a little bit of extra presence. You pull out the treble knob for it's like a bright switch, you know. And then the bass you pull out for a mid boost. It's got a gorgeous reverb. You can run it at 30 or 60 watts. And then it has a boost feature on the back panel that is only accessible via foot switch. And it kind of gets a little dumbly, which is really cool. So I like that amp a lot. And then on the side here, I noticed I had all this space when I had this rack. Another guitar player in town, this guy Tyler Shirelli, basically gave me this rack. It was in really bad shape, and I took it to Mental Case, and they refoamed it and, you know, made it so all my stuff would fit. But I had this big gap here, and I thought, you know, that's perfect for my tape echo sideways. So I bought a piece of plywood, spray painted it black. I got some drawer pulls down here, and so I can pull it out and use it like this. Just comes right out, and then when I'm done, it actually pops into place and will stay pretty well. Just like a drawer that stays, that you can feel push, close, and stay there, and then you have to kind of pull extra hard to get it to start. That's a great unit. I bought that tape echo. Do you remember when the Strymon El Capistan came out? The first time that Strymon pedal came out, there were a bunch of guys who were like, well, I guess I don't need my full tone anymore. And so several of these tube tape echoes hit the market at the exact same time. I got that stupid thing for $700 plus shipping. People were like, oh, we just don't need them anymore. Don't need them anymore. So, you know, I don't think you can touch one for twice that now, but I went with that when everyone was buying the Strymon pedal. And I bought a bunch of tapes. I've got a demagnetizer. I've got all the cleaning kit. I keep a spare set of tubes. I keep all sorts of stuff for this thing. And it's a really great unit. I really like it. I've had an old EP3, and, you know, those have a very distinct, sparkly, beautiful sound. They're also a giant pain in the rear end to keep running. They're just terrible. Mine was horrific. If I looked at the pressure pad wrong, it would just mess up. And it really needed serviced, but I ended up sending it along to somebody else. And I'm sure it's worth a lot more than what I let it go for now. So anyway, tape echo. Then on the bottom here, this is, to me, the best sounding 50-watt Marshall I've ever heard. I got that from Uncle Larry too. And it's a 69. And it has a metal faceplate, which you can see. Metal faceplate, but plexi guts. So it's kind of a hybrid. It's kind of a transitional amp as well, just like my Tuxedo Basement. And I had a tech work on it in town a long time ago, Jeff Heim. And he told me as he was buttoning it up, and I went back to pick it up from him, he said, I made a bunch of notes on that circuit because that thing sounds great. And I'm pretty sure that his 50-watt lead circuit kind of amp is loosely based on this specimen, and probably a couple others. Ryan Warner has a ton of great Marshalls, and I'm pretty sure that Jeff has been inside of those as well. So moving along, I've got this really weird little 5-watt, it's a signal tracer, that's what it says, but it's an amp. It used to be a tube tester, I guess, and somebody rehoused it and didn't rehouse it, they repurposed it as an amplifier. It's basically a Fender Princeton or sorry, a Fender Champ, a 56 Champ for the 5.6 FA or something like that. It's that circuit, and it has an input and then a speaker. If I plug my speaker cable into this jack, it defeats the little 5-inch Panasonic speaker that's in it. But what's really cool is plugging in and miking that up. And then when I play, this glows. This thing pops out and glows. It's pretty cool. So you just basically just turn it on. You'll hear it fire up, or it might take a minute anyway. There it goes. Yeah. So really cool little amp. I've been a big fan of it. For something a little left of center, it's been really great to have. And over here, I just have a ton of guitars. You know, I'd love to do a real rig rundown with John at Premiere. That'd be really fun. Might have to reach out and ask. You don't have if you don't ask, right? So, just left to right briefly. This is a maple-bodied cooter caster with a Supro sandwich pickup in the bridge position. This is an old Supro, I forget the model, actually. It's really cool. It has these amazing funky humbuckers in it that are so microphonic, I can't play it when the drummer's playing in the room, like right over here. You would hear the snare and the cymbals through the guitar. That's how microphonic those pickups are. But, you know, when he's on his second pass or he's not playing, and it's a good overdub guitar. This is an Airline. It's basically one of those old Stratatones with 2 pickups, a reissue, but I put the original 50s Hershey bar pickups in it. And here I've got a 6-string Rick. That's actually a Greco, but don't tell anybody. Sounds amazing. 12-string Dan Electro, which I love. This is a Brian Setzer 6120. It's like a 2003 reissue, 2004. It's got the old school bracing, the right nitro finish, and it has TV Jones in it. This is the best Dan Electro baritone I've ever heard of anybody's. I don't know why it sounds so good, but it does. It's dark and smoky. Still has all the top end, but it's not just shing. I feel like when people play those guitars, it's just shing. You just hear all this ultra top end that's like, ugh, just assaults you. And then this last one, I ain't proud of it, but that's a PRS Mike Mushak baritone. It's great for really heavy stuff, metal, whatever. And then there's the drawer down here. You can see I've got some of my extra full tone stuff. Lots of strings, speaker cables, extra slides. Just, you know, stuff in case I'm a bonehead and forget things. And I don't know where they have my cab. I have a couple cabs that I like to use. I have a Matchless that I have Heritage greenbacks in. And then I have a Bogner oversized 212 that sounds awesome. And I have a WGS Invader 50 in that right now. And the other side is still the original Vintage 30. I hate Vintage 30s, but I don't mind it if you don't mic it up. So there you go. That's my little world right there. Oh, probably should talk about the pedal board. So this is my board, and I like kind of going smaller and lighter these days, to be honest with you. I'm going to do a video about this all by itself. What I will tell you now is that this little tempo unit right here controls the Echoplex, the HX, and the H9 all together. So whatever tempo I set that at, they all automatically go to it. And in this day and age, with so much pop songs, it just makes sense to have everything time locked. I mean, on these pop tracks where you're playing with drum loops and synthetic instruments that are perfectly in tune, everything's perfectly on the grid, it's a different thing than playing with a band and having the pocket sort of breathe and being really human, you know? I'm not saying one is better than the other. I enjoy them both for different reasons, but it just makes sense to have everything tempo locked on those kinds of songs, which is quite a bit of what we do, you know? I I guess I really like the variety. I like playing a couple outlaw country songs and then moving to a 90s thing and then something that's kind of R&B and Muscle Shoals and then something that's straight pop and just getting weird sounds, and thinking more about textures and vibe than like melodic parts. We get to do all of it, It's not all just one thing, and I'm I'm thrilled with that. There's hard rock. It's all good. I love it all. So, thanks for hanging. I'll see y'all later.